Yes, for real. Oh, it's really hot.
But it's so good.
So they make everything in-house?
Sun's coming.
I'm sure we'll find some other cute
Are you more of a skirts person or?
일식? 중식은 아니야. 일식 아니면 한식.
Okay.
Thank you.
오, yes. White strawberry 매우 juicy, 매우 달콤해, and 매우 맛있어.
Oh, there's two. Right behind this car.
绿茶，
拿一个给我。
两个一样。
这两个。To see like the big castle thing. I
Did
feel
not.
like
I feel like we did everything but that today.
yeah. First the hummus. Oh, what's civilization? Post shitter meal. It's a crazy adventure
Mm-hmm.
where we went nowhere and everywhere. would have really liked to take
隨時窩心難，見到夢裏被你衝開，願神出。
They have so many cats.
Oh shit.
I mean, they have all the mean shading, but obviously. Don't worry, Oh my gosh, this is so cool. It just never did. Yeah. This is such a vibe. Does your mom know that we arrived safely?
I think so. I'm gonna text her again. I told her about the car charging.
Honestly, this really hit the end of a long travel day.
Like
Like a hearty bowl.
Yeah.
I feel the bagel is better for the morning.
throw. Throw, plan, host, cater.
Costume.
There's so many in New York, you just can't get to them all. I feel like we haven't had a proper dessert place, have we? We should see if there's dessert around here.
So yeah, thank you for making a wonderful night with us.